Welcome to another episode of Dynamic Diecasters, where this week we're going to continue our Star Wars Build Your Own X-Wing build, with this one being issues 73 through 76. And when we come back from our fabulous intro, we'll go ahead and get started on stage 73. Welcome back. Like I said before the break, we're going to be working on issues or stages 73 through 76 this week. The vast majority, I think, is going to be working on the torpedoes, the proton torpedoes, and the cage for the rear fuselage, I believe. But with that, we'll go get started on stage 73. We'll go through the parts, and I'll show, I'll build it, and then I'll show you what we did after that. So there aren't very many parts in any of these stages, really, so the build itself won't take very long today, I don't think. But if I can get this bag open, it would be nice. But so a bunch of the little metal pieces. If you guys recall in an earlier episode, the buildup of the cage for the fuselage itself is a bunch of little metal pieces screwed together. So that's what it looks like we'll be doing today. But at least with this stage, the rest of the stages, like I said, I think are related to the proton torpedoes. I think that's it. So we've got left cargo bay bottom struts. Let's see, I have to figure out which ones they are, because it's probably one of these pieces. There's a left and a right cargo bay strut. Looks like this is the left one, based on the way the bottom part curves. And that's the right one. Then we've got two smaller pieces of the struts, which look like they would go the same way. So they go out and then out. Then we've got left bulkhead reinforcement and right bulkhead reinforcement. So this is the right one, and then this is the left one. Then we've got left cargo bay reinforcement and right cargo bay reinforcement. So it looks like it's this and this. And lastly, we've got 3 XW01 screws and then 7 XW02 screws. With that, in about 30 seconds, I'll show you what we did. And see you in 30 seconds. And that's it for stage 73. That actually took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to. It took me almost an hour. But you guys will only see about 30 to 45 seconds of time lapse. But basically we put together this fuselage assembly with all the pieces we got from 71 and 72 stages. And then I don't remember. Yeah, we got a few from this stage, but we attached them all and then attach the bulkhead from a few stages ago to the front here. So that's where we're sitting through stage 73. We'll go ahead and move on to stage 74. I think the rest of these should go pretty quick though, because like I think I had mentioned before, it's all related to the proton torpedoes, I think. Yeah, so the parts provided are used to start assembling the rack of proton torpedoes, one of which was used by Luke Skywalker, if you guys remember, if you've seen Star Wars, I would assume you have, to destroy the Death Star. So when we complete it, the rack fits inside the fuselage below the cockpit. The other piece is the external power supply lead. So we'll go through the parts and then we'll get started on this stage. I don't envision it'll take very long though. First we got the torpedo rack base. Then we've got 4 torpedo lower bodies. And then we've got the external power socket and wiring. The interesting part to me is there's no screws. So I'm like, okay, so I wonder if we even do anything except sit them in. Yeah, I'll be able to do this, I think, on the fly. So the first thing is we take the 4 halves that we got and the base of the torpedo rack, that's step 1. And then we examine the bodies, and it says note that one of the holes nearest the end of round is round. So the end, one of them is round. And then one of them is D-shaped. You can't see it on camera, but I can tell. The very bottom one is D-shaped. And then I guess on the rack, they're D-shaped at the bottom. So they basically would just fit in that way on the rack. So I'll go ahead and fit these in here, and that'll be the end of this part. Then we'll, it looks like we attach the wiring to the external power supply to the PCB board. Oop. Almost dropped that one. So yeah, that was the first part of the stage. So that's what we did so far. The second part is it's identified as socket number 20. So basically the next part is to attach it to the PCB board into slot 20, which is on the, you can't see it, but it's the very bottom corner on the PCB board. I might need tweezers, I may not. It depends on if I can get these in here with my fingers. Might need the tweezers for this one. Normally I don't. Normally I can get them in with my fingers, but this one for some reason is being a little finicky.
Can you pause it and get it?
And that's it for stage. So all we had to do was input that right there, as you can see on the camera. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to stage 75. It's probably going to be a lot of the same as 74 was, so it might go pretty quick. So it says the parts provided are used to continue the assembling of the rack of proton torpedoes by adding the upper halves and the central spacers. And then there'll also be 6 of the conical torpedo warheads to put on there. So we'll go through the parts. Then I'll go ahead and time lapse this part because I'm not sure how long it'll take. May not take me very long, but we'll play that. Regardless, I'll still time lapse it. Like I said, I didn't think the rest of these, I thought the first stage wouldn't take very long, but it ended up taking a lot longer. So here's the torpedo upper bodies, and the last stage you saw that we did the lower ones. So these are the top parts. Then in this little baggie, there's the torpedo rack spacers, and then the cone, the 6 nose cones or the warheads, which they're very tiny. You probably can't even pick them up on the camera. And then lastly, there's 6 nose cones. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started on this stage. And when we come back in probably 15 to 30 seconds, I'll show you what we did. See you in a few seconds. And that's it for stage 75. We continued the buildup of the proton torpedoes. So we put the upper parts on. Then we put the spacers on here because I believe in the next stage we'll probably be putting more torpedoes on up here. And then the last thing we did was we assembled, I'll show you one, but just the top part, where the warhead is, where the nose cone for the warheads. We did 6 of them. So they're tiny. But anyways, we'll move on to 76, and that's the final stage of today. And it'll be another continuation of this torpedo section. There's a few parts. There's a remote control extension cable right here. And then we've got a torpedo rack top. And then we've got the upper bodies and lower bodies of 6 more torpedoes. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll time lapse this part and I'll show you what we complete at the end. See you in a few seconds. So that's it for stage 76. So we completed the torpedo rack. So we put the 6 torpedoes on top and then completed the assembly of the rack. Obviously we'll put that in later. The only other thing we did was we attached the remote control extender cable to the PCB board. So that's pretty much it for today's episode. We've got the next episode for Dynamic Diecasters will actually be our first episode of the Knight Rider build. So that'll be a little exciting, a little bit different than what we've been doing on the channel. Well, it's the same type of thing, but a different build. So, but the next episode you guys will see on the channel will be another unboxing day video. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel and hit that bell so you get notified when new videos come out. We typically release them every Friday, so you should see them the morning of every Friday. But for all of us at the Heart of Geek, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Dynamic Diecasters, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.